you are certain you would say no. If a stranger in a lab coat ordered you to hurt an innocent person to keep going while they screamed in pain, you would refuse. You would stand up, walk out, and never look back, because you are a good person. In 1961, a scientist designed an experiment to test exactly that belief. And what he found is one of the most disturbing truths ever uncovered about the human mind. Because 65% of ordinary people, just like you, went all the way to the end. Let me show you how. To understand why this experiment happened, you have to understand the shadow hanging over the world when it began. The Second World War had ended barely 15 years earlier, and humanity was still trying to answer an impossible question. The Holocaust had not been carried out by a handful of monsters. It had required thousands upon thousands of ordinary people, clerks who filed the paperwork, engineers who designed the camps, soldiers, train conductors, guards, ordinary men with families. And when they were finally put on trial at Nuremberg, and later at the trial of Adolf Eichmann, they nearly all said the exact same chilling sentence: "I was just following orders." The world dismissed it as a coward's excuse. But a young psychologist at Yale University named Stanley Milgram was not so sure. He wondered something almost nobody wanted to ask out loud. What if it was not an excuse? What if, under the right conditions, ordinary people, decent people, could be led to do monstrous things simply because someone in charge told them to? Were the people who ran the death camps uniquely evil? Or could it happen anywhere, to anyone, even here in America? He built a machine to find out. Now imagine you are one of his volunteers. You answered a small newspaper ad offering $4.50 for an hour of your time to help with a study on memory and learning at Yale. You arrive at a serious-looking laboratory. You meet another volunteer, a friendly, slightly nervous, middle-aged man, pleasant, ordinary, easy to like. An experimenter in a gray lab coat explains that one of you will be the teacher and one will be the learner. You draw slips of paper, you get teacher. It feels like luck. It was rigged. You are always going to be the teacher. You watch as they take the other man into a small room and strap his arms to a chair. They attach an electrode to his skin, and the experimenter explains it is connected to a shock generator in the next room. Your room. Your job is simple. You will read him pairs of words to memorize. Then you will test him. And every single time he gets an answer wrong, you will deliver an electric shock. And here is the part that matters. With each wrong answer, you move one switch higher. You sit down in front of the machine. It is a long horizontal row of switches, 30 of them. The first is labeled 15 volts. The last is labeled 450. Underneath the switches are written warnings that grow as you move down the line. Slight shock, moderate, strong, very strong, intense, extreme intensity, danger, severe shock. And then, at the very end, past all warnings, 2 final switches marked only with a red XXX. The experiment begins. At first, it is almost easy. He gets a few wrong. You deliver the small shocks, 15 volts, 30, 45. He grunts a little, but it is nothing. Then the voltage climbs. At 75 volts, he groans. At 120, he shouts out that the shocks are actually starting to hurt. You shift in your seat, but you keep going because the experimenter is right there beside you, calm and composed, and then you reach 150 volts. And the man in the other room stops playing along. He cries out. He says he wants to be let out. He tells you his heart is starting to bother him. He refuses to go on. This is the moment. This is the exact point where you, sitting there, would surely stop. Right? You turn to the experimenter, the authority in the gray coat, and you look at him for permission to stop. And he simply says, in a flat, calm voice, "Please continue." So what do? Your hand is on the next switch. The man is begging. But this is a Yale scientist telling you it is fine. You are torn in half. And if you hesitate again, the experimenter has a script of exactly 4 lines, delivered one at a time. Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. And finally, you have no other choice. You must go on. Notice what he never does. He never threatens you. He never raises his voice. He has no power over you at all. You could stand up and leave at any second and nothing would happen to you. All he has is a lab coat and a calm voice of authority. And for most people, it turns out, that is more than enough. The voltage climbs. 200 volts. The man is screaming now. 270, agonized shrieks through the wall. You are sweating. Your hands are shaking. You might be nervously laughing, a horrible reflex people actually displayed. You keep turning to the experimenter saying, "He wants to stop, someone should check on him." And each time, calmly, the experiment requires that you continue. Then, you reach 330 volts. The man pounds on the wall. And then, something worse. Silence. He goes completely quiet. He has stopped answering entirely. He may be unconscious. He may be worse. And the experimenter tells you that no answer counts as a wrong answer, so you must shock him again and again, into the red, into the XXX, a shock that, if it were real, could kill him. Before he ran this study, Milgram described it to a group of expert psychiatrists and asked them to predict the results. How many people, they thought, would go all the way to that final lethal switch? Their answer was reassuring. Maybe 1 in 100. Only someone deeply disturbed, a true psychopath, would flip that last switch. That was the confident, professional prediction. 1%. The real number was 65%. Almost 2 out of every 3 ordinary people, teachers and salesmen and engineers and fathers, went all the way to 450 volts. And nearly everyone, every single participant, went at least to 300, not because they wanted to. This is the part that haunts people. They did not enjoy it. They were in visible agony. They protested, they sweated, they trembled, they begged the experimenter to let them stop. And then, when told to continue, most of them continued anyway. Their conscience was screaming, and they obeyed the man in the coat instead. So what actually breaks inside the human mind in that room? Milgram gave it a name. He called it the agentic state. Here's the idea. When you accept someone as a legitimate authority, giving legitimate orders, your brain quietly performs a switch of its own. You stop experiencing yourself as the person responsible for your actions. You begin to experience yourself as merely a tool, an instrument, carrying out someone else's will. The responsibility, in your own mind, shifts onto them. And so I was just following orders is not the lie we always assumed it to be. For a lot of people, in the moment, it is the literal, honest truth of how their mind felt. The conscience is not overpowered by force. It is quietly handed over, outsourced to whoever is standing there in charge. Now, I have to be honest with you, because this experiment has been argued about for 60 years, and you deserve the real picture. Milgram deceived his participants and put them under genuine psychological distress. It was so ethically harsh that it simply could not be run this way today. And later researchers, most notably Gina Perry, went back through his original recordings and found that reality was messier than the neat story. Some experimenters pushed participants far beyond the 4 scripted lines. Some participants may have suspected the shocks were not real. So the precise number, that clean 65%, absolutely deserves scrutiny. But here is what did not fall apart. Because the obvious question is, fine, but that was 1961, a more naive time. Surely modern people who know about all this would resist. So in 2009, a psychologist named Jerry Berger carefully recreated a version of the experiment with every modern ethical safeguard in place. And ordinary 21st century Americans obeyed at almost exactly the same rate. It has since been replicated in other countries with the same grim result. The details are debated. The core finding is not. The capacity for this is still, right now, sitting inside ordinary people, inside you. Which brings us to the truth you have been resisting this entire video. Because you are still sure, aren't you? You are still quietly certain that you would have been one of the 35%. The ones who stood up, refused, and walked out. Everyone is certain of that. That very certainty is the trap. Because the people who flipped that final switch were not monsters. They did not have cruel faces or dark histories. They were kind, normal, forgettable people. The man next to you on the bus, and every one of them walked into that room just as convinced as you are now that they would never ever do such a thing. That is the real horror Milgram uncovered. Evil, the large-scale, historical, world-scarring kind, is almost never carried out by monsters. It is carried out by ordinary people who trusted in authority a little too completely and stopped asking themselves the only question that matters. Not, what have I been told to do, but, is this right? The switch is wired into all of us. Milgram simply found where it is, and being able to feel it there, to know it exists inside you, is the one and only thing that gives you a real chance of refusing to flip it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like this, click subscribe. Your brain didn't want you to know, but now you do.